Want to welcome everybody to today's workshop, September 15th, 2022. It is 2:10 p.m. First thing is public comments. We have, looks like 2 or 3 folks, I think. First is Mike Wilson with WBW.
Yeah, Garrett wanted to lead off first.
Okay.
We just switch.
Sure.
Okay, sure, cool. I got some packets here I can hand out. Wait. Brief.
Thank you.
But what we were wanting to meet on was, I work with WBW Development, and our subdivision is Lake Point Terrace here in town. And this is regarding we kind of had some back and forth on some dispute on what's credited and what's not for our park fees. On the first slide, you can see that a resolution was passed by council regarding park fees and how those are going to be handled on June 6, 2019. And basically the option was to pay the full park fees. There's 636 lots in this subdivision, $225 a lot for a park fee. So it was either pay the full park fees of $143,100, or you can see the itemized list of amenity improvements that the developer could get done. On that list, all of the amenities have been done except for the hike and bike trails. You see the red box, and we estimate that to be $50,000. It has not been done yet. It's kind of been delayed. The following year is when the master trail plan came out for City Temple. And so that may have changed kind of what the trail was agreed upon. And so we have the pool, the entrances, the playground, everything else agreed upon that resolution has been completed and been out there for a little while. We're trying to get some amenities out there for some folks as the back and forth on the hike and bike trail was still kind of going under. And so what we're kind of asking is to not be required to pay the full park fee still. I understand the hike and bike trails aren't out there yet, but the rest of the amenities are. So, I mean, on the item list, 5 out of 6 are installed. And so some kind of credit towards, instead of paying the total park fees is what, we are kind of looking to find a solution on. We still would like to put forth the $50,000 for the hike and bike trails, because we do want it to get down. We know it's kind of an integral part of the master trail plan. I'll let Mike kind of handle the back half of these slides. That's kind of the scope on kind of what we're meeting today for with Lake Point Terrace and the trails.
Mike, you up?
Yes. My name is Mike Wilson with WBW Development. I joined WBW on March 28th this year. And my first day, Kim and Garrett had a phone call to discuss this very, item. And when I got to looking into it, I noticed that the proposed cost for the trail had exceeded the budget. I started looking into the engineering plans. We've got a full set of engineering plans for the construction of this trail. And I also looked at the pro forma. The pro forma indicated 2,200 linear feet, 4 foot wide at $5.65 a foot. That's how they came up with the $50,000. Since then, it was required to be ADA compliant, which brought in 144 cubic yards of additional fill. It also required curb ramps for ADA compliance and street markings for the street crossing. Those were not included in the original estimate. The approval was in June of 2019. That COVID hit in March of 2020, which kind of disrupted a lot of the supply side issues of concrete and steel. So that's what has driven up the unit price for the concrete. Also, I looked into Heritage Park in Belton, which was bid in June of this year. And they had a unit cost for the trail of $11.15. That included, fill, included signage, markings, things like that for the trail, as well as some drainage culverts. So $11.15 a square foot, pretty much doubled what our original estimate was at $5.65. I went back and looked at the resolution, and I watched the June 2019 City Council meeting, and it was pretty, it was pretty bare. Didn't have a lot of discussion. Staff got up and made their presentation, and the resolution language is pretty much verbatim as what's in the resolution that matched the City Council meeting. It allowed a private park that totaled approximately $595,000 to be built. That's the clubhouse, the pool, the splash pad, monumentation, entry monumentation, landscaping, fencing. But in actuality, $1.4 million was spent on that. And one thing I got to point out too is that the land that all that stuff was built on isn't factored into these costs. So there's additional cost in land there. The resolution tied an exhibit showing the cost of $645,000. That was one of the exhibits to the resolution. The resolution called for a trail system on property in excess of 10 acres to be privately owned and maintained by the HOA. So in the resolution, there's no mention of a public trail. But again, the resolution was subject to the proposed park improvements exhibit. Since then, there's been this discussion that it's City of Temple's policy that private parkland facilities, you get no credit for that. But if you read the resolution, it clearly states that the private park facilities that were installed in lieu of the parkland dedication fee. So I just wanted to clarify those items.
So what are your thoughts around the trail then?
The trail is needed for sure. And we're willing to.
And currently y'all are building you're in phase 4?
Phase 4 has been permitted. The final plat has been approved. We haven't started construction on phase 4 yet.
And this resolution is from 2019?
Correct.
So is it, and this is a question to you and to staff, is it customary that if there's a trail agreement that we wait, and I know that we're COVID, I know COVID's been we lost a year of our lives in that, but is it typical to wait this long to build a trail whenever you're in, you're pushing 4 years and you're into almost phase 4 of your development and there's still not a trail?
Typically, no. But, COVID hit us with.
Typically, no, it's not meaning that typically the trail is built, or no, it's not.
Typically, the trail is built up front.
I think the resolution gave them 2 years. Was that right?
Correct. But also too, I want to point out, in the permitting of phase 4, we are proposing to pay the parkland dedication fees for phase 4. We didn't ask for any of the.
Which is $225 per lot.
Correct, but we have 30 duplex lots here. So it'd be 123 at $225. So about $27,000.
Instead of the 143,
No,
instead of the 50.
Instead of requesting credit for the stuff that has already been built.
Does any citizen have access to the park with the pool and, or that's just
Those that live-
those that are in the?
Just those that live in the subdivision.
Okay. We'll discuss all that in executive session. Thank y'all. Okay, moving on to item 2, which is the work session. Council or board staff, any regular meeting agenda items, either on consent or regular that we need to speak about? Anybody have any questions or comments on anything on the agenda? Staff? Nothing? All right, then, next we will receive a presentation regarding the proposed amendments to the interlocal agreement with Bell County regarding subdivision plat, approval in the ETJ. Mr. Shannon.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So we've been talking about this for a while. This has actually been in progress. Well, I guess since during COVID, I can't blame COVID for it. But we've been working closely with Bell County and particularly led by County Commissioner Schuman, who's here as well to answer any questions. So of course, this is just a workshop presentation on the new MOU, as we call it, a short, but it's actually an interlocal government agreement for platting within the extraterritorial jurisdiction required by the Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 242. And so this presentation is about the draft. We've been working closely with staff under David Olson's leadership, but working closely with legal, with our planners, and then of course with Bell County to come up with what we think is a very simple solution to the question of who takes the lead on plats within the extraterritorial jurisdiction. And so the way the 2002 MOU reads is that, you know, when they're in our ETJ, the city standards prevail over the counties. And so there have been a number of issues and a lot of changes just since 2002, obviously. And a big one is our inability to annex unless it's voluntary annexation requested or petitioned by a property owner. So needless to say, it's time. And so having the setup now, the way we had been doing it, where the city approves it, applicants go to the Bell County Commissioners Court, they had to approve it as well. Certainly not customer friendly, takes a long amount of time. Questions as to whether we're even complying with state shot clock requirements for platting. You know, once the plat is determined to be administratively complete, acting on it within 30 days. And just question as to which standards prevail. And so it's been challenging to say the least. And so just a reminder that this is not something that has just come up recently. This is something that is in our strategic plan. It's also in our comprehensive plan. And so this smart growth section from the strategic plan, and then for the high performing organization section in our comprehensive plan, which of course took the same focus areas in our strategic plan, but focused really on the development side. And so it's under our strategic plan, but of course we have it in there as well. All right, so this is going to be short and sweet, so plenty of time for questions if you all want. But you have the 2020 or 2002, excuse me, the original MOU in front of you, 3 pages. So in terms of agreements, 3 pages is pretty good. That's, you know, pretty short and sweet. So with guidance from the county and working with them, we've actually got it down to 2 pages, and a lot of that is signature blocks. So I'm kind of proud of that, trying to simplify the process. And really, it's pretty simple. And of course, Commissioner Schuman has reviewed all of this and has given his recommendation to proceed so that we as the city would only take the lead on plats that are adjacent to or, you know, contiguous with our city limits, you know, which of course those are the properties that would be eligible for annexation anyway. And then the other piece that we added most recently to the list is just to make sure that if we have properties subject to development agreements, and you all will recall that you extended development agreements for property in our ETJ, and these were 2008 development agreements that expired in 2020. Those were extended by 10 years so that a plat within those properties, and on our development map, they show up in a kind of a pinkish crosshatch area like you see on the screen there, that platting would trigger annexation. So clearly we need to know that if it goes to the county, they can send them back our way. And so administratively, we'll work with the county just to make sure that they have the most updated maps, and we can work very closely together. So really, that's it. That's when we would take the lead on plats in our ETJ, and the county would take the lead on all others. So that's probably a long way to say that. Happy to answer your question.
Brian, so the donut, which is not contiguous, would go to the county.
Well, if it abuts our property line, which most of the donut properties, I mean, our city limits line, most of the properties do abut our city limits, then those, we would take the lead on those.
And those that don't, Bell County would.
Correct. So, and that's a unique circumstance.
It
As
is.
if we got a donut within the donut, we probably need to work with the Commissioners Court and say, okay, well, what makes sense, and if we need to amend the agreement, but I don't know if there's a donut within the donut.
There could become one with
So is there?
requested annexation.
Right, the donut hole, excuse me, yes, donut hole.
Oh, donut hole,
Within the
sorry.
donut hole.
Stop it.
That's a good one. I think that's a really good point. So let's take a look at that mapping line, and we might, we might call that out in addition to the areas that are, under development agreement, because it probably doesn't make sense for a property otherwise surrounded by city limits to not be, not come to us. So that's a great point. We'll take a look at that.
Yes. Great question.
Any other questions?
I have a small question, maybe.
Yes, ma'am.
How's it secure for the property owners there?
I'm sorry, can you ask again, please?
How's it secure for the property owners? You got property owners sitting on that land and so forth. How do y'all handle that? How do you make it secure for them that did they already sell you their property? Or are you gonna go in there and try to get in their property?
You're talking about the quote unquote donut hole?
You got it.
Okay, so that, once again, we're reliant on voluntary annexation. So those property owners, if they don't want to come into the city limits, then they don't have to. So it's security and the services that we provide, then it comes back to,
You ask them, you send them letters of notification that you would like to annex them in and so forth and so on.
All that,
No, ma'am.
let's hold all that. That's
Yeah.
not really the appropriate time.
Yeah.
For those types of questions.
but let's see.
Yeah.
From the audience.
Sure.
But now it's not the appropriate time for that. This is him making a presentation to council.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
I'll give you my card and you can talk about it tomorrow. Or after the meeting.
As we continue to grow, is this an issue that's coming up more and more?
Yes,
So we just
Mhm.
are needing to be
yes.
aware.
And it's, in terms of especially the different standards, and sometimes our standards require more for the property owner, and sometimes the counties are stricter, require more, and when they're in conflict, it's been a challenge. If our planning and zoning has approved something that then has to go to Commissioners Court, and understandably, they haven't approved a few of those because they can't say, hey, that meets our standards. So it's, we're certainly in favor, just the simplicity, also getting the word out to our applicants and our property owners so that they know where to go. It's one thing to say, hey, this is easy. It's only easy if they know where to go. And we're working closely with the county and their staff to provide the best customer service, but,
So this will also kind of obviously that second meeting for the applicant, right? Either just come to the city or just.
That's right. And that's a good point.
Nice bright line.
I failed to focus on, but it is, the big idea is to truly provide a one-stop shop.
Good. Commissioner, thank you for working with the city. Bill, thank you for working with the city on that. I don't know who instigated it, but that's been ongoing for a while.
The
problem.
judge instigated it when he saw that the MOU was initiated in 2002 and had not been updated since. And this is the last of the larger municipality agreements. And I want to thank Mr. Chandler, and I'm sure Ms. Davis probably were the leads, and all the rest of the staff who contributed. I mean, this is about as concise as you can get. Colleen's is a multi-page agreement. Belton's is a geographic agreement, so there's multiple maps in there as to who does what in what location. This is great. This is great. One thing Brian did not touch on when he talks about the different requirements as part of our subdivision work that we've been doing. We've really consolidated the vast majority of, I mean, obviously outside of the municipality, we don't have landscaping and sidewalk considerations that we take in, but all of the infrastructure, the road, right of ways and everything else, we have settled on a matrix that both the city and the county have agreed on, to where at some point, if you do annex that portion, the road will be at city standards. And the things that are left out or that wouldn't be in the normal city subdivision could certainly be addressed at a later date. So I want to thank Mr. Chandler and his group too on that, helping us work through getting that list of criteria for roads and things like that standardized between the two.
Yeah. That is very helpful to everyone. Good. What else? Is that it? All right. Good. Thanks, sir.
Good.
Yes.
Since you don't invite me very often to these, if I can address the young lady's concerns over here about the donut hole. That donut hole, everybody in this room understands the problem with the donut hole. And I would just say that the Temple Police, the Temple Fire Department, the Bell County Sheriff's Department, and the constables for the past umpteen years have worked well together. Okay, if there's a fire in that donut hole, it doesn't go to the Moffett Volunteer Fire Department. Okay, Temple responds to it. If there's an immediate crisis there and Temple is close, the Temple Police Department responds to it. Same token, if there's a sheriff that's close, the sheriff takes care of it. So the citizens have not been unduly left in a lurch just because they're in the donut hole.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Moving on to item 3 is to receive the City of Temple Boards and Commissions annual report from Ms. Caraway.
Now that you're awake and alert for this exciting presentation.
hiding in the rack.
So this will be the second time I've come before y'all for the Boards and Commissions annual report. As you know, y'all divide, y'all pay rent.
A lot of people here don't know that.
As you know, you divide your annual appointments into two different dates, annual appointments in April and annual appointments in October. And so these are going to be 7 boards that you appoint. Actually, we'll be appointing the majority this evening. And so we'll just go over the annual board details again, a few stats, and then reports. Just as an overview, again, the Boards and Commissions policy does dictate that each board provide an annual report to the council, which includes their activities for the previous year's goals and work plans, as well as their attendance. What I will be doing is just giving a brief overview of the Boards and Commissions annual report. You have the complete report in front of you.
And also, each board has either their department head or their liaison here in the room or on Zoom. So if you have a more detailed question about the board or board's activities, please stop me and ask that question, and we'll have the board liaison answer that. So the 7 boards that we're going to talk about this afternoon is the Airport Advisory Board, the Animal Services Advisory Board, Citizen Police Advisory Board, Civil Service Commission, Emergency Services Advisory Board, Planning and Zoning Commission, and your newest board, the Youth Advisory. These are just a few little stats I like to throw out there. Now, this is just for those 7 boards only. In the previous year, they met a total of 124 times. So pause just a second to thank the staff, the department head, the liaisons, and the board members. That's a lot of agendas, a lot of reviewing, and a lot of meeting. 77 board members, you received 17 applications for 6 vacancies, and the Planning and Zoning Commission wins for most meetings, including their work session was 44 times they met the last year. Way to go, Brian.
You dog, making it work so hard.
So diving right in it with the Airport Advisory Board, they really focused a lot on the FBO, as well as they got a ramp grant, hangar leases, and also approved recommendations to the city for right to first option with Centerpoint. And they were also notified of intent to hire KPA for a future land use plan. Their goals and work plan. There's no sound effects with that airplane. Don't take cover. Their goals and work plan was to review and make recommendations on the hangar leases as well as the future land use. Also, the emergency plan rewrite, recommendations on various federal and state grants, construction projects, and also continue to advise the city council on rules, regulations, minimum standards, the airport code, and more leases. I did fail to mention on the previous one, because I love saying it, is review the presentation on the ARF. And so moving on with the next board, which is the Animal Services Advisory Board, which Susan's board, and I'm also one of the board liaisons for. The main focus of their meetings this past year was really on the animal shelter rebrand and also redesign. And so they've really been working with RBDR Architects to really redesign the animal shelter, and it's really going to be phenomenal when it's done. But in addition to that, they also reviewed several fees and ordinances and made recommendations on those. At every meeting of the Animal Services Advisory Board, they hear reports from both staff, the veterinarian, and the Greater Temple Belton Foundation for Animal Care. Their goals and work plans is really just to continue discussion and have thoughts on the design of the new animal shelter and branding, as well as continue to advise council on the various ordinances and fees, and also look at having an in-house veterinarian. Your next board is the Citizens Police Advisory Commission, and you can see here that each board or member is provided with these key policies. They are one of 2 boards that came up with their own mission. Their mission, you can see there's to serve the Temple community and strengthening the relationship between the citizens and the police department with the goal of collaboration and improving the quality of life. So they really focus on all of these different reports that they receive, a monthly summary report, a criminal procedure, juvenile crime rate, etc. And you can see that there. 5 members of CPAC also attended the Citizens Police Academy, which I thought was pretty cool. Their goals and work plan, they want to receive a presentation from the PR manager about the public information officer's role, discuss with the contractor for the homelessness and mental health strategic plan, which I know they've been working with Nancy a lot on, as well as hosting a coffee with a CPAC member event, and also just working on their relationship between the City of Temple and the police department. The Citizens Police Advisory Board also saw that they would like to have a one sheet of information on juvenile crimes. And so they came up with that, and that's also in your packet. And it's this really cool sheet that can be posted online or handed out to parents. And it just kind of gives an overview of the most common juvenile criminal offenses and the repercussions of such. And so, again, you can find that in your sheet. They even have a little QR code that you can scan, and they can pass that out. Your Civil Service Commission, there's 3 members here. They all attended training on the civil service appeals process, as well as provided appeal decisions for fire driver, police corporal, and police sergeant. They also certified the eligibility list for those 4 positions. They reviewed and approved the civil service local rules, as well as fire and police appeals, and continue to attend training on civil service issues. The Emergency Services Advisory Board reviewed the Emergency Management Services monthly reports. They took place in the push-in ceremony for the new ladder truck, participated in several tours. They also received presentations on Temple EMS, the master plan and emergency preparedness. And you can just see there a picture of one of their flyers of one of the open houses that the board did attend. Their work plan and goals center around continuing reviewing the emergency management plan, as well as EMS and fire, in addition to continue to review and recommend items to both the fire chief, staff, and city council. Next, we have the Planning and Zoning Commission. They reviewed over 100 cases last year. And the 3 major cases that stood out to them was the Beyond the Bend Master Plan, the planning of the Parklet program, and the Metadata Center. Of those 50 subdivision plats, there was an additional 29 that didn't require P&Z approval, but they just put that in there. 47 zoning cases, 4 code amendments, and 3 master and neighborhood plans. So they broke their goals and work plan down from the strategic plan goal that really focused around growth. And you can see their responses to these initiatives, which is really growing the development in Temple. What they would like to see, or this one here was interesting. I think they asked for having the ability to review annexation cases, but that's not possible because of our city charter. So working with staff, now the P&Z Commission will actually be provided with reports on the annexations. So I thought that was a good example of how staff really bridges between council and the commission. Recommendations is to provide additional training opportunities for those members. Their chair will attend the American Planners Association conference in El Paso, and they also ask for more webinars and training on planning and zoning issues. And our last board is the newly formed Youth Advisory Commission. Y'all selected 15 youth members. They were sworn in on January 3rd of this year. I actually got to go and swear them all in. In the short time they've met, because they don't meet during the summer, they were able, through a donation from the Rotary Club, erect a little free library and gathered 500 books to use as donations in this little free library. They also created plans for a construction event, as well as ideas to erect 4 more little free libraries. They would also like to attend the National Youth Advisory Commission Summit, and they also participated in Open Meetings Act and Public Information Act training. And there you can see some pictures of the youth. I've never painted in any of my board meetings, but we might, I don't know, consider it. And their goals and work plan, again, are just to, and they were the other ones that came up with their own their own mission. And it's really just to get the youth of our community involved in government. They again would like to do 3 additional Little Free Libraries and also obtain some swag items, T-shirts and bags and things like that to give out and to give away. And that's the very short presentation. Again, you have your full report in front of you. And are there any questions or things you would like to see for the next round, which will be coming again in March? Well, thank the department heads and liaisons. I just repeat what they said.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Liz, tell the youth advisory board, they want swag.
Mhm.
We need to talk to Nancy
Okay.
and Nancy's crew.
All right.
Love your.
Well, Miranda's on Zoom, so Miranda will get that and get with
It'd be a great
Nancy.
way to combine in some manner. It doesn't have to be identical, but some connection.
Absolutely. All right. Thank y'all. And again, thank all the board liaisons for their work on all these.
I love where you live. That's what I mean.
Next item is to discuss the city of Temple government policy. No?
Back to the sausage making. So I did bring an updated copy where I featured redline, which I made the changes that we got through the last time we talked. So wanted to make sure that those represented. I accurately captured the request and the conversation. So we essentially got through the public comments, public appearances, and public participation. And that's where we also, as council recall, began to have a discussion kind of about parliamentary procedure and how formal or not we wanted to be. So that's kind of where we left off, and many of the next questions are in that same theme about how closely we want to follow, a traditional kind of Robert's Rules of Order system. And one thing before we get into the evaluation that I don't think I made clear last time that we were talking, so I want to make sure I do that today, is that this document is not necessarily a staff recommendation. This is what we tried to do was to create a comprehensive policy of everything that cities sometimes include in their governance policy, so that you could then choose what's best for Temple. Now, staff does have some opinions on certain things that we, will share with you as we go along, but I just want to make it clear that we were trying to give you the universe of things to consider, but not necessarily saying this is what you should do. So I wanted to make sure that was clear. So again, Mayor, we left off on page 5 last meeting, and we were really talking about, again, the formality of the council meeting procedures. And that's going to be the next few items that are highlighted in yellow are going to be all around the same thing.
Okay. So
If we want to start
I'm
with
gonna
the
start with,
public participation to make sure I capture those, that's fine too, or you can read those and give me feedback, however you want to proceed.
I think we got through with public participation. I don't think that needs to be reviewed. So section 1-60, consideration of ordinance, resolutions, and motions.
And just also as a,
Those are pretty typical.
recalling, I've highlighted in yellow things that are different than our current process, or that I thought were significant in some way. So if it's not highlighted in yellow, it's putting in writing what you already do. So,
Okay,
I mean, certainly read it, but I think our
No, I-
time would be best spent
I understand.
focusing on the yellow.
Okay, very good. All right, moving on to item D, which is the top of page 5, city council deliberations. Did we not do any of this?
We talked about this one last time,
Okay, I
but
thought so.
I didn't get a clear, we kind of cut short just before, we were having conversation about, wow, that seems very formal.
Right.
And, well, let's leave it in there, but not do it. And staff recommends not doing that. So.
Putting it in there if needed.
Yeah, so, and again, the idea is, and actually, we had the Leadership Temple group come in, this week, and Liz did a great presentation with them on parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rules of Order, and it's really a way to help, bring order to, a meeting, and, I think we are relatively, informal, which is fine, but that can present issues if you have a more lively discussion.
Or even one lively council in the future.
One
That takes
one live wire away. That's
Yeah.
right.
So the first one, D, is really about the, that before a member of the council speaks, they would be recognized by the chair. So they would say, you would either have a button in PrimeGov or raise your hand or say, Mr. Mayor, and then you would be, given the floor.
Flower mound all over. Yes, I'm fine with leaving those, extra capabilities, the more formal outline in case it was ever needed.
I think that my personal recommendation is very much like when we first worked on the board and commission policy. If it's in your policy, you should follow it. And if you don't feel like you need it, take it out now. I wouldn't put it in and then say, oh, we haven't been doing this for years, but now Councilmember Smith is on and there are problems. So we're gonna start enforcing this thing that we haven't enforced. I think you would be worse off than if you amended did a formal amendment to the policy at that time.
Well, but I think we're saying the same thing. Because if it were in there, if the formality were in there, correct? And it wasn't used until you got the one live wire, then it's in there and you can use it if necessary. Am I missing something? I'm getting blank stares
And I'm
coming this way.
wondering,
What am I missing?
I think it's always better to follow the rules that you have in writing. And the other way that this is drafted right now is that you review it every year after you have an election. And so that way, if at some point things start to get messy or difficult to follow, or you happen to get a new council member on board who's more lively, then you have an automatic review process. And then that's when you can adjust to the new circumstances.
You're not gonna know they're a live wire.
Exactly,
Until a year,
Right.
right? I mean, it'll be a year before you review. So, I don't know.
Like if you go down to G, which is worded a little bit more, it simply says that any member of the council wishing to speak shall first obtain the floor by making a request for the floor to the chair. So if you have that in your policy, but you routinely don't do it, you're not following if you don't intend to do that, I really don't recommend you leave it in the policy.
So if someone gives a presentation about an ordinance, whatever it may be, and Tim says, does any council member have a question? We all look at each other and say no at the time, but then have a question later. We all say, Mr. Mayor, I have a question. May I have the floor? Or can I just speak? Because he already said we can speak.
The way that this is written and the way parliamentary procedure generally goes is that you would always, at any point that you want to speak to the body during the meeting, is that you would say, Mr. Mayor, or raise your hand. You don't even necessarily have to say anything. If you just kind of raise your hand if he sees you.
Okay.
And then when the time is right, either after whoever's speaking is finished or after he finishes his thought, then he would.
So it'd be the same thing. If Susan said something and I want to play off what she said, I would still need to get a nod or something.
Usually how this would work is while she's speaking, if that sparks something you want to say, then you would look at the mayor and kind of raise your hand, and then he would know that meant you want to have a follow-up. And then when Susan is through, then he would call on you.
Okay.
So that's how that works.
Does that also include like we will make a motion? Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Well, that's a little bit different because we've also got the system that assists with that, but yes, what this would require is anytime during a meeting, either workshop or in a regular meeting, just get the mayor's attention and then he would say.
What if he shakes me out?
Arm down, baby.
Also, we have a spicy mayor, I think, isn't that what it is? A spicy community.
Yes, ma'am. You may speak, Councilmember Long.
Thank you very much. So grateful.
And see, that is exactly all you would have to do.
Yeah.
What she just did, that's it.
What a miracle.
But listen, y'all have to call me Mr. Mayor. You have to say Mr. Mayor.
Nice. Call me Mayor. I'm forgetting what I wanted to say. Oh, in reference to what Jessica said. We're very lucky that we have a mayor at the podium downstairs who is you're very, very conscientious about looking back and forth to see if anybody's, flying out of a chair, we want to say something. That would not work if you have a mayor that never looks forward, only looks forward. What happens then if you want to say something, the mayor's not recognizing you?
You would
You know,
verbally say,
accidentally.
yeah, you would verbally say,
Excuse me?
yes, Mayor, can I
Okay.
make a statement? Can I ask a question? Just either whatever you prefer and what's most convenient. It could be, a gesture or a spoken word. And again, often systems are available too, if you just want to press a button.
Oh,
And then I don't know if Prime does that, so that might be a future.
That's an upgrade.
And retraining.
Yeah. So I guess then that would go far enough that if the mayor didn't acknowledge the council member or did acknowledge that they want to ask something and says no, then they can just move on. I mean, a council member doesn't sound like to force a thought if the mayor just moved past them or ignored it or
There's
said no.
a process in here somewhere about, if the council has an issue with the way that the mayor is handling procedures in the meeting, they could have a motion to challenge what you're doing. So if it turns out that at some point you would be intentionally ignoring a specific council member, then they could make a motion to, ask for a ruling on how you're applying the rules that you're not doing. That's how they would address that. Not that you would ever do that.
If you look on page, not to skip forward, but if you look on page 8 under mayoral responsibilities, you are required to encourage participation in council discussion and give each member an opportunity to speak. And then at the very bottom of that page, any council member may ask the chair to enforce the policy established by the council. So if the chair was routinely ignoring a council member and not allowing them to participate, then that council member or another council member could say, Mayor, we need to have everybody participate. And then if that mayor still didn't, then they could by majority enforce that. Again, very unlikely to happen, but that's the process that's normally used.
Okay. So leave the formality in, council. We have to explain. Okay. So we start doing this when this is adopted, right? Not tonight.
Not tonight. We can let Liz train you. She does a great training, I think, so.
Okay.
There's a beach ball.
Bring the beach ball, that's right.
Exactly.
So are we on K now? Definitely something we're not doing.
Are we on K yet or are we on E now?
Oh, yeah, I think I switched. Sorry, yeah, I jumped. Keep on. Keep on.
So E is kind of similar in terms of, putting the more traditional parliamentary procedure. So an agenda item is announced, the council can discuss the item without the need for a motion. The council will limit their comments to the subject matter.
The intent is not to limit debate, but rather to assist council members in their efforts to communicate effectively and concisely. During work session meetings, each council member, this is really the part that is something you don't do right now, is each council member shall have 2 opportunities to speak on an agenda item, limited to 5 minutes each. Again, these are just things you can consider, and it can be different numbers. It's just, we just want to show you things that other communities have used. And then all council members will be permitted a 3rd opportunity to speak if approved by a majority vote of the council. And during regular meetings, the council will have 3 opportunities to speak, but limited to 3 minutes. Responding to requests for clarification or staff responses would not be included in the time allotment. So the idea here is, again, not a current situation that we're facing, but if you got into a very contentious council situation where you were just kind of spending a lot of time going in circles, this would give you an opportunity to limit that. You're not facing that issue currently, so this is really setting something in place for, if you want to set that in place, it's really for something that's more.
And no filibustering. That's kind of what
Yeah.
And at each change in speaker, they need to be formally recognized. So there's kind of the back and forth conversational discussions that we have currently.
Yes, and another thing you can do, this does address work sessions as well as council meetings. If you wanted to not have those specific rules for a work session, so that way you can allow it to be more conversational, but then have it for a council meeting, which is normally more formal anyway, that's also another option.
Well, again, a lot of this is addressing things that don't happen with this council. So it probably does need to stay in place for work sessions also.
I mean, I personally, you could do it either way. I do think it would be appropriate if you wanted to consider a little less formality in workshops, because they're intended to be a more informal setting to discuss policies that are upcoming, that are not yet, ready for formal action. So I don't think it would be inappropriate to have kind of a different, a less formal process in here than you do in the chamber. It's,
That would allow someone to filibuster in workshop instead of the, I mean, really, it would it not?
Yeah, so again, you could put that in place for your order.
It's hard to put it in place after you need it.
Well, if we're gonna do it, then it's please workshop out.
Y'all need to listen to me. I'm always talking. No. Okay, that's fine. Again, nothing to die on. It just seems like if you're gonna do it one place, you do it to prevent the exact same things in a more formal setting. But
thinking further too, I was, in a debate where you would have a motion on the table, which would not be in here because there's no action taken. You do have a motion ability to call for the question, which if approved by, I think, 2/3 would end discussion, deliberation on that item and immediately go to vote, which you don't have that. You really wouldn't have that mechanism in a workshop discussion. So I don't know, is there another way to just say, we're done talking about this?
I think the mayor just as the leader of the meeting could say, we're being redundant at this point. So we're moving on to the next agenda.
What if we rewrite this to just be more about, similar to the language that we have in public comments that, The chair may deny or shorten any comments if they are repetitive of comments previously made, disruptive or disrespectful, something, not exactly that language, but something similar. So instead of having exact numbers of opportunities to speak with time limits, you just deferring to the chair. Things start getting like, okay, we're not making any progress and this is just getting repetitive. He or she at the time could just move it on. Does that seem like maybe something that would?
Yes. Yes.
It's a lot more flexible.
We like it better when Brenda.
Pardon?
We like it better when Brenda.
Is there an echo in here? Okay,
I think we really settled G, and there's another example, the chair shall recognize any council member who appropriately seeks the floor. So someone would be clearly in, outside of the policy if they were trying not to let someone speak.
And also even F, it's not highlighted, but that kind of addresses what we were just talking about as far as the repetitious comments. So you could rely on that.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
To just move it along as well.
We really already have that language in there. Just be adding that the chair as the one who makes that call.
so during the regular meeting, where we have the two opportunities to speak to, 5 minutes, one more, 3 minutes. So even if it's repetitious, you still allow that.
What I was suggesting really is to delete item E and amend item F to clarify that the chair is the person who decides if something, they're using their discretion on whether it's getting repeated, if it's getting repetitious, and it's been able to move the meeting along. So you would eliminate the prescriptive number of times to talk and the limit on time, and give the chair the discretion of what's going on too long or what's being repetitive.
Right. So E is out altogether.
That would be my recommendation. And then
The whole E or just the second paragraph?
the second paragraph, rather, I'm sorry. The first one is just, that when you're talking about an agenda item, you're going to talk about that item and not, bring in other topics. I'm sorry, yeah. Is everyone comfortable with that?
All right, so we're done with G.
And also, just let me point out, under motions, H, point of order, that's what I was talking about, where if the council feels that you are not appropriately applying these rules, that's where they would call for a point of order to address that. If you're abusing your discretion.
The reason I highlighted I was for the same reason. It requires recognition by the chair. So I think as long as we put those others in, then that's really the only substantive thing about that. And K is something we do not have in place at this time at all, which would require council members to disclose communication with an applicant or petitioner outside of a public meeting. So if you got a phone call or you got an email, you would have to let other council members know about, kind of put that on the public record instead of it just being something that you personally considered.
So anytime I would call someone to ask them about an agenda item, just what are your thoughts?
Only if it was the applicant or the petitioner. So if someone was applying for, I mean, this would most often come up in zoning or plat. So it wouldn't be anyone you were talking to, but if you were talking to the developer or the applicant, then that's when this would require you to disclose that.
So I know I've contacted people when they send in a notice of disagreement or a request.
Yeah,
or something like that.
This is primarily like, and the examples are in there, property owner regarding a rezoning request or a vendor prior to bid award. So the person who's the agenda item, is dealing with, but not other people you talk to about it.
I'm very much in favor of L. There are.
Is everyone okay with K?
Should it be mandatory or should he poll the council for the meeting? Do you think?
For the bathroom break.
For K or L?
Or, L?
I think we jump back to K.
And so I just wanted to get clear direction that we were okay with K because we haven't done that before.
That's fine with me.
And then the secondary question though, is if you do that, it requires that you file it in writing, and that could be an email, with the city secretary, then what do you want her to do with them?
It
So-
just- it seems kind of like an overreach. It's not necessary to do that. But I may not be thinking it through clearly. Is that something that you've seen in other cities?
Yeah,
And
and
you found it necessary?
the intent being, sometimes council members are considering information that's not presented to them at the council meeting, that they receive from the applicant either through a phone call or, hey, will you come out to the site and let me show you something? And then that may either be information that all of council needs to know, and would find helpful in their consideration, or it may be some information that's not correct, that if staff knew was being presented, then they could provide an alternate view. It's really just making sure that everything that you're relying on and making your decision is all out in the open, so everyone knows what's being relied on.
It's awfully cumbersome, awfully cumbersome. That doesn't make it wrong at all, just. How many times did all of us talk to, with no malintent, just getting information?
For that information, we need to report to the secretary. If it's with the applicant or someone that is wanting to do business with us.
It's gonna be on the agenda or just doing business?
That's on the agenda, something that you are acting on.
Anything that will come to city council for a decision is what it says.
So we emailed Jana, poor Jana. Jana, I spoke to Hoochie Coochie, and the Hoochie Coochie said, and Jana then sends it to everybody else?
Yeah, I guess like the WVW guy that reached out to all of us.
Yes.
And then we would need to disclose to you that we spoke with him.
Or that we received it or just spoke to him?
Tell you what,
Do we report that we just received it? But I don't know who else might have received it, or do we only do it if we spoke to them?
I think both. I think if it's something that you just received, you can just forward that on to Jana, or I received this email or this document or whatever. And then if it's a phone call, so-and-so called me about the document.
That's a perfect example because the WBW letter yesterday, which I forwarded to you, and you, he sent to everybody but individual names. So, I mean, poor Jana. This is putting a real burden on you, on
No.
Jana to collate everything that,
It's just part of the meeting process. I mean, it's just part of the agenda process. It's really, when we talked about accountability or not. You're kind of infringing upon the people who may be at the meeting stepping in opposition because you've already received your information from the applicant. And you may have made up your mind without hearing, you know, anybody in the audience during the public hearings. I think it's really common.
so we send it to you and then you send it on to everybody.
If you think of it like a trial.
No, I
and
do.
the judge gets the information without it going to the jury, or, you know,
Right.
it's just
It's a good point.
It's above the board, so everyone knows.
It's a good analysis or analogy. I'll never talk to anybody.
I
know, I know, it's like
So much
actuary.
trouble.
Well, there you go. We'll talk about it.
Exactly. Call Jana, don't call me, she'll pass it on.
Okay, so the call for recess, everyone's for that.
What's gonna happen to you?
If you don't what?
Like, what if you forget? No, what if you forget? What if you forget? And someone's like, you're in violation.
Yeah, I think there's a. This is the rule. I mean, I think it's still in here about, what happens if someone breaks a rule. It's just
No.
enforcement, yes. If the council member believes this policy has been violated, the topic shall be placed on a meeting agenda following the way you get items on an agenda. But again, that's another discussion for all of you. What is the process that you want in place if someone violates the rules? And that's really just another decision.
I mean, I get Kay, I just think it's a lot. I think it might keep me from making phone calls. I'm gonna remember to jot down everything we said in a timely manner so that, you know, we've got some chance, everybody else will get it in time. I don't know if that.
Does it require disclosing the content of the conversation or just that communication occurred? And how you've typically seen it applied?
Both.
Kathy, you made the analogy to a trial. In a trial, in essence, you wouldn't be talking to anybody on the other side, so to speak.
Right, well, I mean, the judge wouldn't speak to either side about anything substantive outside of actual court proceeding.
So is do we consider the council as a judge or is Tim the judge?
You as the group is the
Everybody's a
judge,
judge?
the body, yes. Because together you make your decision.
I don't like it, but I'll do it.
Likewise.
It's y'all's rules. So I know, I'm just saying, if y'all think it's important that we do this, if it's something that we're gonna skip over ourselves because we didn't do, we also want to know that.
I mean, that's a possibility in the future again. So there could be a situation in the future where you make a decision and you may have relied on information you received or you may not. And it's detrimental to someone else. And then they want to come out and say, well, your backroom discussions, you're violating the Open Meetings Act. I mean, all of these allegations, which may or may not be true, which may lead to nothing, but it's still just more.
So by sending it to Jana and her sending it out, then it doesn't violate.
Well, yes, and I'm not even saying that necessarily talking to these people outside of a meeting would violate the Open Meetings Act. I'm just saying, you know, we've had these conversations before about what's an actual violation and in the appearance of impropriety or bad actions. That's really the greater risk. You know, someone could question, why are you having these substantive conversations that you're using to make a decision outside of a meeting where we don't know what you're talking about.
Along the same lines, applicant A is applying for whatever, usually through planning. And everybody here talks to applicant A 5 times. All 5 times each individual conversation gets sent to Janet and then circulated.
You can, or you can just wait until shortly before the meeting and you could summarize them all, or you wouldn't even have to say, on this day, we talked about this day is like, I've talked to so-and-so about their application for this. And that's really all you need to do. And then, and it also just alerts you all that you're all having these conversations outside of the meeting. And so it may become part of the discussion at the meeting. And say, well, Susan, I saw that you spoke with the applicant, anything that we need to know about, oh no, he just told me what he already presented today. Or, oh yes, I asked about this other aspect and he said this. So it's really just also kind of a way to alert other people. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I found out this other piece of information you all may find interesting. So it like Bryn said, this is your rule and you can make it read however you think it needs to be helpful to you. If it's just put the word out there that I've talked to the applicant, and then, you can all say, oh, Janet told me that 3 of you were contacted. Anything we need to know? No. Or you can say, in your notice to Jana, you need to provide what was the substance of the conversation. That way you all know. So it's really whatever you think would be most helpful to you and least onerous to meet the intent.
Make a quick comment there.
Yes.
So just, and for our boards and commissions, we often just tell them if our board member gets questions, particularly from the applicant, to send them to staff and we can clarify or whatever the case may be. But it could also limit the number of calls that you're getting if they know that this is transparent and that whatever is discussed is going to be on the record. Then it may weed out some of the, I don't know what kind of calls you're getting, but it may weed out the volume of them because they know that it's going to be on the record. So that's what.
You want to think about this one and come back to it?
Sure.
Kathy, I personally on L like your suggestion of hold for a recess, but not necessarily require that it be called if nobody needs one. It's not mandatory every 2 hours, but that's when everybody will be out. Anybody need a break?
There's no way to really get down from the dais without drawing on it.
And if City Hall could accommodate that.
Q had essentially what's the end time on your meeting of 11 o'clock? Or whatever other time you feel is appropriate.
What was our latest, 9:30, 9?
About 9:30.
Q on the bottom of page 6.
Oh, I see.
10 o'clock? Have you had
That'd be
some?
5 hours. 5 hours, 10 o'clock. Yeah, that's enough.
We start earlier than a lot of communities. A lot of communities start their council meetings at 6. So 11 is 10 would be comparable probably to their 11 because they're starting a little later in terms of hours that you're needing to be engaged and paying attention and.
I'd say change it to 10.
On page 7, section 1-80 is really taking our prayer and invocation policy back to what we were doing, largely what we were doing pre-COVID, but also just documenting that's the process that we'll use. Which is, it has not been documented before. And I do recommend that it be documented.
We need to. Great.
The school district, before they start their meetings, they go outside, they have a prayer elsewhere. Why does the city not do that or have to do that?
Not have to have a prayer elsewhere.
Well, they leave the meeting.
Okay. You can do that if that's what you want to do, but the law does allow it and recognizes the history of legislative prayer. Now, what we need to keep in mind is one of the rules about that is that it's supposed to be somebody praying for the body to make good decisions for the public rather than someone on the body, you know, praying for the community at large. The intent of legislative prayer is to bless the body in its proceedings.
So is the school district, are they choosing just to interpret and do that differently? Or is there a difference between, is there something that requires school districts to?
I don't think that there is, but I'm not
Yeah.
positive. I mean, they do have some different rules and laws that we do. My guess is that that's just how they've chosen to handle it, but I'm not positive.
We pray at our school board.
Pardon?
We pray at our school board meeting
Okay.
inside of the meeting.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And this does reference the most recent Supreme Court case, just to be clear that what we're doing has been upheld by the Supreme Court of Constitutional, as long as we do it the way it's written here.
So, and some of the things that have been addressed by the court is, and I think, you know, under this policy, the student suggested here would be in compliance with that, is someone standing in the audience addressing the council and praying towards the council rather than praying out towards the body, towards the audience and towards the people. That seems like a strange or odd distinction, but it's an important one. And sometimes some communities have chosen to either do the moment of silence or maybe, you know, pray outside the building because they don't want to be bound by these restrictions that are required in order to make it in compliance with the law. So that way it's outside the meeting. You can do whatever you want. You can attend or not attend. And then you come inside and then focus on business. So
Okay.
that would be my guess.
Any more discussion on section 1-80?
So what are we saying?
So in the way that it will work is very similar to what we did pre-COVID. So Jana's office will maintain a list of citizens or ministers that are affiliated with the congregation in Temple and who are willing to offer an invocation. And she will contact them on a rotating basis. And so it will rotate based on people who have volunteered to give the invocation. And it has a provision that if that for some reason the person who was supposed to give the invocation was at the last minute unable to attend, that then the chair will ask for another volunteer from those in attendance, and then kind of the last opportunity is for an actual council member. Again, that's important for for us to be in compliance is that it needs to be a member of the public attending the meeting.
I just would like to say at this point that those of you who know me well know that I struggle with prayer, how to do it or if to do it. And I think Judy's prayers have been incredibly inspirational for, what, 2 years now, Judy? They're really, really, really good. Thank you very much for those.
Thank you. I'm always open to do that if needed.
And that's allowed, if someone is scheduled to come in and give a prayer and then they don't, and then there's a process for someone filling in, which could include.
I'll stand by.
Have a prayer in your back pocket. She always does.
Page 9.
This is just, trying to clarify council responsibilities, so I think we've already addressed waiting to be recognized. Duty to vote, this is the policy that you've adopted for your boards and commissions, so this is making that consistent to council, which is that you either have to vote in the affirmative or the negative, unless you have disclosed a legal conflict of interest or perceived conflict of interest and filed the required affidavit in advance. If you don't, if someone didn't participate in the vote and they don't have an affidavit of abstention, then they're reported as a no vote. You can't just not vote, essentially, unless you've got an abstention filed. And then it just clarifies that you're not the council member who's abstaining isn't counted for quorum purposes. And it's not counted to determine if there's been a majority vote of those voting in present. And then the other thing of importance that is different from what you do right now is if a council member abstains from a matter for actual or perceived conflict of interest, that they would have to physically leave the dais of the room or the person for the entire session and vote on that item, which you don't do now, but it's fairly common in other places, and probably a best practice.
In this case, it would be easy. We've got that little room off to the side. Whoever it is could just step back into that room. That way they're clearly distanced from the conversation and the vote. Could be the abstention. Yes.
Let's talk a little bit more about when a council member recuses oneself due to an act or perceived conflict of interest and files a required affidavit. That council member is not counted as present for quorum purposes.
For that item.
Right. So if there were a situation where there were ever just 3 of us there, and someone decided they didn't want an item to move forward at all, and if they could abstain properly, then there wouldn't be a quorum and that item just wouldn't go forward.
And that's really not you. This is really a clarification. You legally couldn't do that. You don't have the authority to.
Essentially, I just had
Your
never.
rules aren't.
Yeah, I just had
Yeah.
never thought of that.
Yeah, so if you have, and we've had a situation before, I can think of several times where we've had a council member, it's typically a council member we know they're gonna be absent, and another council member is gonna have to abstain. And so we usually ask the applicant to move the item to the next agenda.
Same thing as if you know there's an item coming up that requires a supermajority and you know someone's going to be missing. It's
Really a courtesy to the applicant so that they have the opportunity, the full opportunity for that item to pass. If that's the council's desire, but they, because in that case, it would have to be unanimous. And if one person had a concern that, and an absent member didn't,
if the absent member was there, it would have passed, if that makes sense.
That could be used, though. Page 10. Addressing the chair.
So, this is under, citizen, or public participation, kind of the expectations of, in a meeting, essentially a member of the public cannot engage in discussions with council or staff unless, specifically asked a question by a council member. So, if we're in here, kind of similar to just the presentation we just had, if a council member asked a member of, so for example, Mayor, you asked, Mr. Schuman to speak, he would be able to speak, but someone who is just in attendance doesn't have that privilege unless asked a question.
Lately, we've had audience members speaking to other audience members as they're at the podium.
That's,
that-
that's addressed in
is
number
that-
2, which
Oh, okay.
is already, I didn't highlight it because it's already, you already have the ability and your policy already limits that. But yeah, that's what's addressed in number 2 is that when a person is speaking, they are speaking to the council and not to the audience.
And have we removed the need for them to give their address?
Yes.
Yeah.
So do they need to state, I live in the city of Temple, or I'm in the ETJ, or something like that, just so you can have an idea of where they
I think, I'm trying to remember, if we are requiring, that only citizens of Temple or people with businesses in Temple.
That was still in
Okay,
there.
okay, then I think that we should say that they say resident or property owner or business.
Yeah.
owner.
But I'm glad that we're taking that.
Yes.
State your name and city of residence.
If
Well,
you're a
but
resident or
then-
business owner. It's resident, property owner, or business owner in Temple. It's what we talked about last meeting.
We have the sign up sheet. Could you have little information cards or whatever?
Check boxes, are you
Yeah.
a Temple resident? Check yes, no.
Because right now we ask on their address that we can modify it state.
Same thing in public hearings.
You just, public hearings, you haven't limited to residency, so anyone can talk in a public hearing. So you would just ask for their name. If it's a public hearing, you don't really have discretion on
Okay.
who can and can't talk.
For public comment, you're saying you have to be a resident.
I think, and actually I forgot to ask you this, Kathy, if I'm putting you on the spot. I think we do need to say though, if it's an item on the agenda, it falls more under the public hearing where those don't apply. But what you're basically saying is if you want to talk about just anything, something not on the agenda, then you have to be a resident, a business owner, a property owner. That's what you've said so far.
Yeah.
If it's on the agenda though, anyone can speak about it.
Um,
And in the public appearances, you limit it to city business only, but in the public comments, it's open to anything.
but residents,
But resident, you have to be a resident, property owner, or business owner,
right,
unless it's an item on the agenda.
right. But in the past, recent past, we've had numbers or several people who have not been residents and no indication they own business in the city of Temple. So that my name is Ms. Hoochie Coochie and I live in wherever, not Temple. What does Tim do?
Well, it would be Jana, right, that gives the paper, that gathers the paper,
Oh.
looks at the side, check the address. And then I guess we question that individual, you live in Toledo.
Because I fill out all the information in front of prior to the meeting, that's how we see their name and stuff pop up, so I'll check to confirm on the list their actual.
You have time?
Liz does.
Absolutely.
So we just not call their name?
Type down on your typewriter.
And hopefully Liz will have been able to tell the person, I'm sorry, you're not.
Yeah, she typically stands by the table anyway and generally will ask them, because some people get confused, like they think
Oh,
it's
so I
here for public hearing, and so she generally explains to them, oh, you don't need to sign up or whatever, so she can ask those questions.
That's good.
I have item 4, printed materials highlighted primarily because I have not yet, but wanted to talk to Chief about, he kind of approaching the dais. He probably wants us to work that a little bit different. So that's mostly my note. I'm sorry I didn't get that done between last meeting and this meeting, but I'll get with him and we'll make a suggestion. It won't be substantive. It just where those materials are handed in to ensure the greatest security.
Clear about that on the tour of the other city halls.
That's why that was highlighted. Section 110 is on page 11. And this is generally, you do, I think, generally have this practice, but it's not specifically in your policy, your current policy. So it's that you won't make any public comments on litigation. But you can, but you authorize the mayor, city manager, city attorney, or a communication officer to provide any necessary public responses.
Y'all are generally very happy to forward those types of requests to us anyway.
That'll get me in trouble. You might want to take mayor off. Oh, I'll answer the question. And it's, I'm serious. Okay, that's something about. I need some cover too.
Rita said
I can't say anything.
So do you want the mayor to be, are you actually serious?
You have to be.
Give me a year. See how crazy. You probably want to vote that out later. Give me a year.
I think there's times when it's appropriate for an elected official to make comments for the body, and that's addressed in a little bit more detail later. So I recommend keeping it in there. I'll go on the record and say that. Section 2.3 starts on page 12, but the substantive part is on 13. And you, in the last charter amendment election in 2014, the citizen or the residents, the voters of Temple gave you some authority in filling vacancies on council if they're within, I believe it says within a year of that position coming up for reelection. But you currently don't have a process set out for how you would do that if you choose to exercise that authority. So this process that's drafted here would have you follow a similar process to if it was just a normal election, that you would advertise the vacancy, ask people to fill out the application for a place on the ballot. So that's what you would have to do if you were seeking election, and then that is essentially your way of knowing who's interested in filling the seat, and then you would deliberate that. The full council would conduct interviews with any applicants you wanted to.
That's what the school board does. Is doing.
They just appointed someone.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Ms. Cook.
And if it's within a year, then you can leave the seat open, correct?
You can either fill it or call for a special election.
If it's within a year of that seat being reelected?
If it's close enough to and these are the experts over here, but if it's close enough to the next general election, you can rely on the general election, which is what happened with Councilmember Pilkington. But if someone actually resigned or left office at a year mark, you would have to either fill it or call it. You couldn't leave that open until the next general election. You would have to fill it through your authority in the charter or call a special election.
Even within a year?
Mhm.
6 months? I mean,
I
really, I mean, what
don't
what is the
remember the time.
definition of pass?
I think it's 6 months, because I think that was one of the questions that I had jotted out to the side when staff was reviewing this. Because I think Heather had asked, what is our process now? And I think the charter says 6 months. I mean, we can't just leave it, because it takes a good
Right,
while
right,
anyway for the process. I believe it's.
Because you file, so like for the May election, you file in January. So if, and that same time, the same time frame there would be no reason to have a special election and a general election that follows the same time frame. But if it's even a month before that, you do. Because you have to fill it, you have to fill it within the time frame. And so, yes, sir. The section, is that okay, the process as drafted?
Mhm.
Pretty straightforward. So section 2.40 is about use of essentially city resources, facilities, staff, or other resources for mayor or council member sponsored meetings. And this provides a little bit more information on how that would work. Again, not currently an issue, but in any future time, if if all 5 of you wanted to have community meetings every week, that would get pretty burdensome on our resources. So some cities have specific processes that, you'll do, you can have 2 or 3 city-sponsored forums or meetings that you can have as many as you want, but if you're asking for city time and resources, that there's a certain number. And then the other thing I think of importance here is that as currently drafted, you would not be able to have a city-sponsored public meeting between January 1st and Election Day if you were in the election cycle, just to avoid the appearance that you were using city resources for election or campaigning related events.
Fine with that.
And the next thing, again, you guys aren't super heavy users of social media, but this does come up in other areas. This is a council social media policy. So essentially it says that you will, if you're participating in social media regarding or relating to city business, you'll use your real name. You won't have, an alias or anything like that. And then the rest of it is related to complying with Public Information Act and Open Meetings Act. So if you, as a city council member or city official, are posting about city business, then on your social media, then that stuff falls under the Public Information Act. So you have to retain those posts. You can't delete comments that you don't agree with. So you just have to retain those materials in accordance with the appropriate records retention law, and then do not participate in online discussions, groups, or forums that have the potential for having a forum. So same kind of stuff. So meaning, similar to email, if one of you commented on a social media post about city business and 3 of you commented on that same post, you could be considered as having a walking quorum, not forum.
Or a walking quorum forum.
In email, we are strongly encouraging you to use your city email for city business. But if you you don't, if you conduct city business on your non-city email account, just make sure you're forwarding, or we are requesting, this is actually a recommendation, that you forward that to your city email account. Because again, we're required to retain that under the Public Information Act. And then this is a practice you see on every email from me, which is don't email all, copy all, blind copy all, or reply all to emails discussing city business.
And if I could just for a second, the reason why that it's so important with your personal devices and how when we get an open records request for, every email that discusses XYZ topic, what we do is we send it to IT and we give them a list of search terms, and then they run the searches, and then they give us all of the emails that contain those terms, and then we go through it and figure out which ones are responsive. So that's how we would be able to get any emails that you've gotten about city business, and we wouldn't need to bother you about gathering that information from you directly. So the law used to require, a few sessions ago, it became the law that even if it's on your personal device, if it's city business, it's still a public record. So we know that. And then after a little while, they started to interpret it to mean, so if you have city business on your personal device, then you just have to make a good faith effort to retrieve it. So if we asked you, do you have any emails or text messages specifically about this topic? And you said no, we were covered because that was a good faith effort. If you choose to not be honest and not give them to us, or you forgot or whatever, it's okay, we still tried. But then the next iteration was that's not good enough. I mean, it's now we can be found liable if we do not get those records from you, even though we really have no legal way to get them from you. So it again puts the government in a kind of a catch-22 where we're legally responsible for getting those emails from you, but we have no legal way to require you to give them to us. So it's just a big mess. And so that's why it would really just be easier on us and even on you if someone emails you on your personal email address, if you just forward it to your city email address, that way it will be there when we do the search, and it's just easier for everyone.
And not to be scary, but just remember, there are personal criminal penalties for violation of the Public Information Act and the Open Meetings Act. So it's extra. It's not just, it's extra important. But nobody wants for any of us to get in trouble.
Well, if I can just clarify, I went back and looked at the election, and it's 4 months, not 6 months, and it is mandatory. It's either a special election within 120 days or 4 months if there's a year or less left on the term. And if it's the mayor, it's a mandatory special election. That's only applicable.
It's election on the phone.
Yes, and appoint the mayor.
Well, same thing with the council member.
Council members, it's a special election or appointment by council if there's less than a year remaining on. the
Sorry, I
term.
missed
If the
that.
mayor, resigns, then it's a special election.
Okay.
And I apologize, I probably should have highlighted enforcement and administration, just as Kathy mentioned, it is probably important for you all to talk about and decide how you want to handle the, if you feel like one of your colleagues is violating the policy, or a staff member, how you want that handled.
Do something around the censure. There's not.
No, there's really not a mechanism to publicly consider someone. I mean, what you would need to do, you could, as a body, you could adopt a resolution, censuring someone or condemning their conduct, but that's really all it would be is a resolution showing the body's displeasure.
Stop on a wrist.
And this does, then if it's a staff member, it would be the city manager handling the matter in accordance with city policy, our employee policy. And would
come into play for that. And again, each June, after the new city council is elected and seated, we would recommend that you review these. And we adopt an updated version. And if you, but the then current version would remain into effect until superseded by an updated version. If for some reason you couldn't agree on an updated version, the version that was in place at the time would just keep being the set of rules. And then the last thing is just, these are your rules, and it's not Kathy's job or my job to make you do them.
But we can reply.
Yes, if you would like to go to prison.
Or not. Okay, yeah.
What about Let her say Jessica Walker. Okay, very good. Is there anything else? If not, we will hop into executive session.
Mayor, is it appropriate that we schedule this for consideration at your next meeting and decide on the communications with applicants and petitioners at the workshop, and then update whatever is decided there and go ahead and adopt? Or do you want to add another workshop discussion and bring it back for action at the second meeting in October?
I would recommend that we put on the agenda one more time.
Okay.
And be sure that everybody walks through this and really reads through it.
I will do my best to quickly get these edits made. We will get these edits made, so you are looking at what
Precious.
we think you gave direction on instead of, so that way, and then we'll bring it back one more time.
Yeah.
Thank you,
And then when it gets back, so it will,
just for a workshop.
so obviously the cleaned up red line version will then be given to us prior to that workshop?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So everybody be sure and take some time on that one. Okay? Staff, thank you for putting all that together
That's
for
a
us.
little bit of a tedious process.
Yes.
We do departmental update.
My recommendation would
Oh,
be
I'm
that
sorry. We
we
did have one more
we
thing.
do not do that. I think you'll want plenty of time for the executive session.
Yep. I put down here, start at 4:15. We can't get all this done in 20
We could
minutes
do,
probably.
you could probably do one. Is yours 45 minutes, you think?
I think probably 15.
Okay. I do have something under 6, so 4:15
Okay.
is fine with me.
Okay, so which one of y'all is the least prepared? Then y'all need another 2 weeks, or actually 3 weeks.
I brought
Brian's
Jeff.
always prepared.
I brought Jeff.
Oh, you're out.
Not yet. Not yet, if I did not get.
Give the candy.
I'm happy to do it unless somebody, I think Brian's the one who's actually up. He's been put off for like a month.
short.
Okay.
You would. If all 3 of these can be done by 4:15, I will take you guys to lunch at.
All right.
Let's see if we can do it.
Wait, who did you guys?
And you're gonna take the council with you.
That's what I heard. But each of us individually, so we don't have a.
All right. Jumping right in.
All right, do it.
So, major accomplishment.
You want me to read this in first?
Last 100 days.
No, you're wasting time.
We've got a couple TechStop grants that have been awarded, both on Central and the downtown area, West Central Crosswalk, to safely get across our parking lot. And then also East Central sidewalks to connect the city center project, basically extend sidewalks from 6 all the way to the railroad tracks, and that includes BJ's Brewery. So that's, of course, that's been the downtown master plan for 9 years now too. So that's exciting.
Is it enough to pay for 'em?
I'm sorry.
Is that enough to pay for them?
Yes, I think so.
Nice.
Last I heard, yes.
Concrete's expensive. We heard that a little.
That's very true. CIS grants, 3 have been issued recently, NAMI, and this is a modified, kind of a phased approach. It's not the full facade restoration that you've seen before, but at least doing some repair work on the stucco, repainting, awnings, sidewalk repair, so and signage. So should be a good project. 217 North Main and Chupacabra Gym. And so I'll show you in a second what those would look like. 623 acres of voluntary annexation. And so that represents about a percentage of our expansion of our city limits in the last 6 months. So not insignificant. African American Churches Historic District. So the establishment of that. I skipped Mobility Master Plan, and that would not be fair to Richard, who's co-project manager, or Jason Deckman, who both did a fantastic job with that 18-month process. It's a great product, and thanks to those guys for their leadership. 2 large city-initiated rezonings beyond taking that master plan and having the city-initiated rezoning follow that. And then also the expansion of downtown with really what I'll call phase 1 of the planned development central area, because phase 2, I'll tell you about in just a second. And then also just record number of inspections during a heat wave. And so I think that is significant that our inspectors have just did a fantastic job under less than ideal conditions and just record numbers as well. Did 3 sets of code amendments and then hired a planner, Christina Strickland. So
Hello, Christina.
we're very excited to have her on board. She started Monday. She spent 14 years in the city of Killeen in 3 different departments, most recently in planning, and we can already tell she's awesome. So excited to have her aboard. And so for the next 90, we've got the Unified Development Code update. So we have 2 finalist consultants that we're interviewing tomorrow with the selection committee. And so we're excited about that. Then, of course, Bell County MOU.
Chandler, is it all staff on?
No, two also community members, or 3 actually.
Representing who?
So we've got Chuck Luco, and we also have, let's see, gosh, drawing a blank. Of course, John Keela, and the third one was on, let's see, Richard, who's the third? But either way, we've got, Perry Clark. Should not forget Perry.
No.
All right, and also Ferguson Park Neighborhood Planning District overlay to implement one's our first neighborhood plans, working closely with Cubby on that for some new standards, but also, Brian, more exciting than that is developing building plans for infill development, kind of pattern book idea, so that builders and developers, homeowners can take these plans and off of our website, and they're kind of pre-approved, appropriate for the neighborhood, and get them permit. So that's really exciting. Hiring a new combination building inspector, the North Arts District overlay, and Aaron, I'm going to miss that meeting tomorrow because we got interviews for UDC. So
No worries.
bring it all
We're a
back.
team. I gotcha.
All right. Another round of Unified Development Code cleanup, not the overall update, but just some cleanup. And then city initiated rezoning south of the railroad. And so just a quick glimpse, this is something they've been working with Aaron's direction and to look at basically phase 2 of implementation of the downtown master plan and starting that process. Y'all will hear more about that. But thus far, it's very early, but we just have the green light to start that. And basically extending some of the downtown standards south of the railroad, which once again, lots of industrial, no residential is allowed in that area. And some of it would be really appropriate for rehab or infill development.
For
So,
housing,
for
for
housing.
residential.
Yes, ma'am. Looking at permit numbers. So on the left, these are just 3rd quarter permits. So March through June, And basically what you see this year versus last year is a 13% increase. Then permits cumulative for the first 3 quarters of the fiscal year, actually a 26% increase. And then just looking at single family residential, and so 2022 being the orange, and you can see that in June, we still, we had dipped from previous months. They weren't necessarily record months, but overall, we're still looking at a record year. Quarterly inspection numbers, very comparable to, as you would expect, to our permit numbers. And so actually in the 20s for increases from just the third quarter versus the cumulative first 3 quarters in the previous 2 years. So just looking at downtown in particular, I thought this was a really interesting figure. This is one of our KPI or key performance indicators, but in terms of really looking at private downtown investment, our Main Street program tracks this, and Dan Kelleher provided this figure, and I want to share with you. Since 2018, we've seen over $20 million worth of private investment downtown, and that's confirmed through permanent values. New downtown businesses, Glory Days Shoe Shine opened on June 3rd. That's at West Avenue B. And then in the next 90 days, Weirdos, Lena Lane Boutique, Chupacabra, and I'm going to show you some examples of those. Rec Center and Art Department, which is 14 through 16 South 4th Street, next to the new Bird Creek that's under construction. And then a proposed sports bar / soccer facility at 217 North Main. There was a facade grant for that one. And so just showing you some examples of what these businesses would look like. This is exciting. Lena Lane, Jack Folsom bought this building at 118 South 1st, and they've got a permit to finish up interior finish out. And this is what it looks like. Looks like the picture on the right. They're very close to being ready to have Lena Lane, that boutique, locate within it. And she has a spot at the hub. So this is great. Using the hub as an incubator and then staying downtown in a rental space. Weirdos is going to open, they say, by the end of the year, but that's their conservative estimate, which means it could be within the next couple months. And then NAMI, this is the part from the CIS grant, Strategic Investment Zone grant, just to show you signage, awning, repair. Okay, so this is the one that I mentioned, 217 North Main. They're going to call this Hat Trick Sports Bar, and it has a soccer focus. He's hoping to be open by the World Cup, which, as you all probably know, is every 4 years, and this year is actually starts in November. So he's got 2 months to essentially get open by then. And but facade renovation, also taking kind of warehouse space and turn into an indoor training facility for kids to have camps, et cetera, but also a sports bar with food trucks.
So Monty's doing that?
Next to Monty, I think Monty's been involved because, Monty loves soccer.
Yeah.
And so, but no, it's actually Magen Contracting is the applicant, and it's MoFlo, the company, Ryan Flores and Louis that own that building, and the tenant is actually the general manager for the Coyotes FC, the semi-pro soccer team that just finished up their season recently. Okay, Chupacabra, that's at the old Main Street building there, 201. Oops, sorry. And that's all I've got. Do you have any questions?
Hi,
That was quick.
Great.
Chiefs it is.
Thank you. Welcome
One or
aboard.
two more.
Thank you.
Very much. Happy to be here.
Very good.
Go next. If you have present.
All right.
Nancy,
She gets.
No, not at all. I'll move.
No, you're good.
Sure.
Thank you all. I think we'll probably only get through one chat passing out the gifts. No, but we are expecting some. No, I was fully assuming. Yeah, I know. I fully assumed Nancy would be bringing candy during her presentation. We don't pass out candy. We do work for. That proof. That's right. Really. So, safety items.
There we go. I got a hard hat yesterday. Didn't give me glasses.
So while Chad's passing those out, I'm going to, go through my presentation very quickly.
Can we put these on during your presentation?
You may. So I'm going to go through the different sections of Transform Central, starting with our projects crew. We still have a vacant evening position and a vacant abatement position. We've done 11 board ups. We always do banners in the downtown area. We've all seen that.
Yeah.
Along with parks. We're in charge of the tool library. We're in charge of dumpster drops that y'all see monthly, along with any specialty dumpster drop items or cleanups that happen. We work with Nancy.
You have dumpster drops every month? I mean,
Yes, sir.
consistently.
Yes, sir.
Scheduled out, ready to go.
Yes, sir.
That's great.
I don't know how to say yes anymore.
No, that's, we didn't have to say anything, statement.
We have 18 neighborhoods. Yeah, so we cycle through every year. And then we give extra if it's.
Yeah, no, that's great. That is awesome.
In charge of the infill program, we talked about that last time, I think. When it was up, and how we brought good, we're helping Nancy with a good neighbor program. We're very involved with the city center project on Arcadia and the professional building. Chad goes to all those meetings along with Mark Jesse, our party manager. Garages was next. And then downtown lighting. I'm sorry, I was supposed to be clicking through these. This was a cleanup we did on North Katy, Mr. Mayor. I think you, Mayor, were aware of that one.
Every time I'm aware of it.
4 roll-offs came out of there. I do not think it was all from the people staying there, but 4 full roll-offs, which I don't know how many tons of trash that is. But anyway, these are the guys hauling stuff out of there. This is board ups that we mentioned. We did 11 of those in the past few months. Tool library. Interestingly enough, the new patrons have really jumped up. I'd like to thank marketing for their help.
Yeah, you
Keep pushing out the program. Last year, this time, or a year ago, this time, we were getting 0, 1, 2 new patrons. And then individual checkouts, 47, 52. That's pretty big. And that means people are coming in. We're down to every Tuesday and Thursday where they pick up tools. We call the day before. They come in the next day to pick them up there in our office. We're very excited about that. Teresa Stockton is in charge of that, really. Our part-time admin, she does a great job. Yeah, it really is. Dumpster drops, did 5 events. Those are the neighborhoods, almost 9.5 tons. So that's almost 2 tons per event. And yeah, they are. People love them. And then 479 tires. I would remind council that trash bags. I would remind council that that I cannot guarantee that all this trash or these tires would be on the street, but some of it will. So we are preempting some of the trash that we see in the neighborhood. Great plan. We had talked about it a long time ago. Nancy really started pushing that through when we took over. So we're very happy about that. Infill program, which we've talked about before, we've had 7 new in the past, whatever this is, 5 months.
Thank you.
That's all over town and in those districts, so that's pretty exciting. And here's a couple of examples of some that are currently on our list. 506 North 4th, 921 North 10th. And then that's a big deal. It looks like they're pumping concrete in there. So 1105 South 33rd. But that's what that house looked like before anybody. And we are helping that, bring that home back into something and bring it back on the tax rolls. And it's exciting. And a family and a neighborhood.
You took it down.
Thank you.
No, that might have been a remodel. I'm not
Oh,
sure to be
okay.
sure, but some of them we have taken back. So
Well, the next picture is new
as soon
foundation.
as they are, this is a different lot.
Okay.
As soon as we're done with those, I'll bring pictures next time.
Oh, good.
We have started on our downtown lighting project, started 3, 4, 5 years ago with Leadership Temple. Took a while to get going. So currently we've done TISD, the workforce TEDC chamber building, and then the front of Santa Fe there. We did not do the Moody Depot in this go round because something about the way the eaves on the front of the building, the lighting they had didn't work. And we said, well, let's do the right thing. So we pushed it off till when we get some of these other buildings done. That's working with legal, everybody. This has been kind of tough to get going, tough to get everybody signed on. So we really appreciate everybody's help. Chad worked with to get access to the buildings and everything. And so I appreciate all the work done there. They got it done very quickly and it looks kind of cool. Currently, Thursday, Friday, it's lit up blue for Wildcat. So it's all on an app and you type it in and you can make it do whatever. So,
Keep it.
So what's next?
well, I haven't decided yet, Judy. Let's talk about that.
Keep it.
Oh, what's the next?
Your house phase.
I do not know. I'm really waiting on other departments for agreements before we.
I think we have to get we're working on getting permission and access, so.
Yes, ma'am.
It's taken much longer than what we wanted, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Wrote the check, right?
Say again.
Tracy said she wrote the.
No, they're playing.
How did Matt get that? Abatement, city lots were mowed 259 times. I want to be clear, that is not 259 individual lots. We mow the same lot several times, but that's what we've done. 468 code orders to mow. And then of those, 394 code lots were mowed. So we order it to be mowed. And it's sometimes in between the time we order it and we get there, the homeowner says, oh dear, I need to get over there and mow real quick. So 193.
Oh, dear.
Oh goodness.
Oh, yes, of course.
And then 201 that we mowed. Tires, that's that same number we saw earlier off the events, 479, plus just the guys stopping as they drive down the street and see tires and grabbing them, 216. And that's both code and Transform Temple Projects people.
I've called about mattresses in the street.
Oh man, I don't want to talk.
It's just amazing what people.
We'll be going to lunch and Chad will say mattress sale, and it's like every other house has a mattress.
Amazing. No, I'm talking about in the middle of the street.
Well, sure.
I'm like, it blew out and they just kept going. It just.
And signs. So those are either bandit signs on phone poles or H signs in the right of way or whatever. So we pick up a lot of signs. Demos for CIP, Lucky's RV, that's up off of Hart Road, off of Pegasus. It took forever to kind of get done. It's gone now. So that's all part of the West Outer Loop project. So that's good, easy. This was a big one for all of us, but for Bren, she was really pushing this, and I'm excited about the whole new project that's going in here. But y'all approved passing this on to I forget who it was. Yes, the community plan. Yeah. So this is the old fire station. Actually, code enforcement at one point was officed in there along with the aquatic for parks. That huge tower that had a basement and chemicals and water it was horrible. It's gone. It's been gone for a while, but that was a big deal and that was tough to get down. Once again, Chad and his team really have done a great job with all these demolitions. I appreciate it.
Cool video too.
Yes. Did he share that with everybody?
No,
Just you.
I can't send it around. They don't let me.
Oh, you can't reply all, that's for sure.
Get more, can't reply.
Code compliance, we had one building and standards commission meeting in April. We actually had another one last week. One order to demolish, 2 orders to secure. I want to tell you all, the commission is wonderful to work with. They're very responsive. Mr. Mayor was there at the last meeting. And Tom Dickerson, our code manager, is in charge of those. Tom's doing a great job and I really appreciate it. He is very detail oriented, wants to make sure all the boxes are checked, and it is a kind of, for me and for my team, it's a very intensive legal process. We have to do everything right. Charlotte steers us correctly. Tom does good work. Then we've also, I've spoken about it before, using the grading that we're doing with the neighborhood planning districts for all of our structures. We are working with the utility business office. They tell us when there are voluntary shutoffs. We couple those two lists, and if a voluntary shutoff is coupled with a G or an F rated structure, we run over there and see if it's vacant, and if it is, we slap a red tag on it, which will keep people from moving in that structure. And it doesn't fix the structure, but it keeps it vacant so we don't have people in there legally. We've sent 56 complaints, which eventually become citations to municipal court. That number has grown.
And
Yes, ma'am.
Beaver, just to clarify on that second bullet,
Yes, ma'am.
the reason that we do that is because if the structure is found in an unsafe condition. So we want to make sure
Sorry,
that it's
yes.
not, that we're not having people living in a structure that's unsafe.
This is not.
Not to be punitive, but just to make
Yes.
sure to keep people.
Yeah, this is
safe.
not an aesthetic decision, and we're trying not to kick people out of homes. But we are grabbing homes that are unsafe and empty and telling people you cannot move in.
And owners will rent them out.
Yes.
To people.
They will rent them out after there's a red tag.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yes, we keep an eye on this. And 56 complaints to municipal court, that number has grown. Once again, I look at every complaint before it goes to court. Everything comes, we have a meeting weekly that they bring to me. Chad and I will offer suggestions. Hey, maybe try to reach out, or have you talked to this person? But a lot of times it's just like, we've done everything we could. We've been working on this for months. Go for it. Love where you live stuff. That's, I'll let Nancy talk about that next month, or next meeting, but y'all know all about that. Case counts, bunch of numbers. Happy to share them with you. Obviously, April and May were big, beginning of spring, and then it tailed off because there was no rain. And then comparisons from last year were lower. August, actually, we're higher in August. We're lower in June and July, higher in May, lower in April, and all that has to do with high grass. And if y'all recall, last year with the rain, it was insane. So it wasn't as bad as last year. God, I think that's it. Downtown parking, y'all know about this. Moving forward, revisions to our parking. For parking, we're working on a lot of stuff. Standard operating procedure for our parking enforcement officer, license plate recognition systems, payment and court processing, metering, parking. This is all stuff that we have to do for parking. I had no idea. And thank God we got a good guy hired that y'all approved and Brent pushed. Mark Jesse is a solid dude. He's got a lot of experience.
There's not a lot that you see happening kind of outside the building yet, but Mark is, I think, a really strong hire, and he's laying a lot of the groundwork. So as we have the garages come online, we're gonna have some, you'll start being presented with more policy decisions, but they are working really hard behind the scenes right now.
We want to make sure when the garages are ready, we have systems in place to affect what needs to happen there. We don't want the garages there and then start making up our minds on how to do it.
Yes.
So that was all at Brandon and David's, pushing us. Not too hard. Code, still doing some intensive code patrol, Temple Heights, T-Med. And then we're looking at new construction. We're having some issues with new construction, high grass and dumping on lots and stuff. So we're really keeping an eye on that, working with Public Works, Richard's team, to make sure that we're addressing that correctly. That's pretty high profile. I imagine some of y'all get calls about us sometimes, but they're valid cases. We're not out there picking on people. We're out there looking at grass that's 3, 4, 5, 6 feet tall next to a home run. Working on our citation process to make sure that's tight and good. We need to revise our mow fees. This is something that David tasked me with some time ago. We're looking at it. We've looked at other cities, how they charge. Currently, it's $200 per mow, and that could be a huge lot. And it doesn't really accurately represent the amount of time the city's put in to get to that point.
How often are those fees actually paid?
I
I know
don't,
I signed lots of releases.
The
yeah,
collection rate on them is pretty low.
Yeah.
But we do file liens and we have been, Laura's really been working those
she has.
and we've collected a lot.
30% or 3%?
I think it would be, you could probably get 40% within 10 years.
It's a great, they don't pay it up front a lot of times, but it's a great tool to use when somebody wants to buy it. Like right now, people want property.
Mhm.
They roll in there and they need this property to do something. Well, you owe us $600, so, okay. I'm not misstating that. You didn't need this.
Yes, I did.
Okay. We're having conversations regarding a quarter record here locally. I don't know if, I assume y'all are in the know there. I'm not sure where it is. It would make our lives a lot easier. So
What?
a court of record, meaning.
Oh, right.
So we're willing to assist or support whatever we need to do to at least work through that process to see if it's doable here locally. Enforcement of our street use license and parklet program, specifically in the downtown area. Permits and planning make some decisions and they say, okay, you can do this stuff within this these parameters, and then we enforce it if they get off. And then structure inventory, and I hope we're almost done. The department, more code revisions, working with marketing on several things, including our website. Excited about whatever we're going to be doing with the North Arts District. I think it's a great opportunity. I know Aaron and Brian, a lot of people have been working on that. So we're starting to have conversations. They're starting to have conversations with some of the groups involved coming up. And everybody I've talked to, and I'm involved in both the Symphony and the CAC, people are very excited, very interested, want to know what's going on. Homeless master plan, that's not what it's called. It is called something else that you told me.
Almost as a
Strategic master plan. Okay. Very excited about that. Nancy is running that show with Dr. Marvin, who you all heard. Wonderful guy. He's got a lot of great ideas, a lot of talk in there. But he does good work. And then neighborhood planning districts, and that's, I did not do it.
Thanks for running lunch.
Yeah, that was my fault.
You could buy.
Thank you for the work. Don't ever mean to downplay the importance of what you guys do by running through these things quickly. I hope y'all know that the work is appreciated very much.
Thank you. We assume it is, or we wouldn't be here. Well, the work we do is important, and
It is.
we think so. But it's nice to hear that. Thank you, guys.
I've driven downtown early in the morning. I see a little Toro was, running.
Thank you for calling it a Toro and not a Gator. Yeah, because that is not a Gator.
Like a difference between a Jeep and a Bronco.
That's exactly right.
Very good. Thank y'all. Okay, now we will go ahead, Nancy. We'll catch you next time.
I'll be there. No worries.
All right, at this time, which is 4:24. Council enters into executive session to discuss, to receive and discuss a briefing regarding current development project, and to receive a briefing from the city attorney regarding possible contingencies and appoint their respective. So item 6 is pursuant to government, Texas Government Code Section 551-087. The city council will meet in closed session to discuss and deliberate commercial financial prospect that the governmental body seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in or near the city of Temple, and with which governmental body is conducting economic development activities, or to deliberate the offer of a financial or other incentive to such a business prospect. No final action will be taken. And then item 7, pursuant to Texas Government Code 551-071, the city council meeting in executive session to discuss and receive advice regarding a matter of attorney-client privilege. No final action will be taken.